Hey everybody, I'm going to talk about malpractice insurance for nurse practitioners and why it is one of the most important professional investments you will ever make. As new providers, we spend a lot of time learning how to care for patients, but not always enough time learning how to protect ourselves professionally and financially. The goal today is to help you understand your options, avoid common mistakes, and practice with confidence from day one, and hopefully prevent anyone from Googling what is tail coverage at 1 o'clock in the morning. Malpractice insurance is not just about lawsuits. It's about protecting your career, your license, and your future. Even excellent clinicians can face complaints, investigations, or claims simply because healthcare is complex and outcomes are not always predictable. One of the biggest misconceptions among new nurse practitioners is thinking employer coverage is enough, when in reality that policy is designed primarily to protect the organization. The safest approach is simple. If you're licensed and seeing patients, you need coverage. The most important thing to understand when choosing a policy is the difference between claims made and occurrence coverage. Claims made policies are usually cheaper upfront, but they often require expensive tail coverage if you leave a job or switch companies. Occurrence policies cost more annually, but they continue protecting you forever for incidents that happened during the coverage period. Think of occurrence coverage as the set it and forget it option, while claims made coverage comes with extra homework later. When reviewing a malpractice policy, the premium price should not be the only thing you look at. You want to carefully evaluate the coverage limits, legal defense provisions, Board of Nursing Protection, telehealth coverage, and whether your procedures and prescribing authority are included. Telehealth coverage is especially important now because virtual care has become routine in many practice settings. A cheap policy that excludes half your actual job responsibilities is not a bargain. It's a surprise waiting to happen. Many employers provide malpractice coverage, but that coverage exists primarily to protect the employer's interests. If there is a conflict between your interests and the organization's interests, the organization's legal team represents the organization first. An individual policy gives you independent legal representation and coverage that follows you between jobs. In other words, employer coverage is helpful, but your own policy is what gives you personal control and protection. Choosing the right policy requires more than picking the first company that appears in a Google search. You should compare policy structures, review exclusions carefully, and make sure the insurer understands your nurse practitioner's specialty and scope of practice. Different types of nurse practitioners have different risk profiles and coverage needs. Also remember, the fine print matters, because that fine print becomes very important on a very bad day. There are several well-established malpractice insurers that specifically support nurse practitioners and advanced practice providers. NSO, CM&F, Berksey, and Pro Liability are all reputable options with strong nurse practitioner-focused coverage. The right choice often depends on your specialty, budget, and whether you prefer occurrence or claims-made coverage. The good news is that you do not have to reinvent the wheel here. Many experienced NPs have already identified companies with strong reputations and reliable support. One reason malpractice insurance is such a smart investment is that the cost is relatively low compared to the protection it provides. Most nurse practitioners can expect to pay around $1,200 to $1,500 per year, which usually breaks down to roughly $100 a month. That may sound expensive until you compare it to legal defense costs that can easily reach tens of thousands of dollars. Healthcare is stressful enough already. You do not want your retirement account functioning as your legal defense fund. One of the biggest take-home messages from this presentation is this: get covered before you see your first patient. Your liability exposure begins the moment you practice as a licensed provider, not after orientation and not after you feel comfortable. Ideally, your malpractice policy should already be active before your first clinical shift begins. Think of malpractice insurance like a seatbelt. You put it on before the accident, not during it. To summarize, never practice uninsured, even temporarily, and do not rely solely on employer-provided coverage. Make sure you understand whether your policy is claims-made or occurrence-based, especially if tail coverage could become an issue later. Budgeting for malpractice insurance should simply become part of your professional life as a nurse practitioner. The goal is to practice confidently, advocate for patients effectively, and protect the career you work so hard to build. This presentation was created with the assistance of AI, but the information was reviewed and verified for accuracy. AI can help organize and streamline educational content, but professional judgment and fact-checking still matter. Thank you all for your attention, and I hope this helps you feel more prepared to navigate malpractice coverage as you enter advanced practice. And remember, the best malpractice claim is the one you never have to test your policy on.